Hello, folks. How's it going? Uh, Welcome back to part two of our open source color palette generator that we have been building since yesterday. And in today's session, we are going to continue building it. Let's wait for a couple of seconds for people to join. Also, I should have some background music here. Nope, not this one. Okay, perfect. I think that's good. Hello. Hello. Hey, I missed yesterday's session. What have we done? Uh, all we did was basically create this color palette generator, which I will share in the chat very quickly. So that's what we built yesterday, and that's it. We What is this project going to be? So we saw a project like UI colors.app, which is basically a really nice resource for generating colors. Okay, so like let's say for this color, you have this very nice contrast grid of it, like the lightest to the darkest shade of it, right? So we are building something very similar. Why are we cloning this website? I would say is because some of the features are paid, and I don't need everything from this. I would like to add more colors, of course. So that is one feature that I would definitely like. And uh, and I was pronouncing this correctly, but fumbling in between. The accessibility of this. Okay, I would also like a contrast grid which shows how accessible the color is, the WCAG rating basically. So yeah, that's what we are doing. That's why we are building this project. And I hope like everyone likes it. Okay. Okay. Just setting up a few things here and there. And I think we have good enough people to join, like who have joined, so we can get started. Before that, uh, I would request you, if you have not registered, please register on by going on this link for this session. Helps you, helps me, helps Major League Hacking keep track of folks who are joining. Okay, so if you have not registered yet, please register. The link is in the chat. And who's joining right now, hello, hi, and welcome. Okay, so also other than that, we also got this RGB, no, not this one, realtimecolors.com, which is very nice alternative to UI Colors app. But for the time being, we will continue building our own project so that we can contribute to it, right? So I created a bunch of issues. So you can see like we have around 6 open issues. We closed one of the issues yesterday, and we are on the verge of closing another one today. Once that's done, we'll go through these, finish that. And once that's done, uh, that would be like today's session actually. Yeah. So today's session, this first session, I have a second session right after this with 1 hour break in between. So yeah, once we finish most of the things from here in first session, then we'll take a break of 1 hour, and then we'll come back and create a bunch of more issues, finish those, and then we'll create some open issues for you all to contribute to it. Okay, we will go through the website as it looks, and then we will think about how could this be better. Okay, what could be changed, what could be improved, what additional functionalities should be there, what additional functionalities that are definitely needed and we are missing. So like after we complete the MVP, as I would say, we would go through a code cleanup, uh, PR. We would go through additional features, PR, and a bunch of other stuff. So that would be open for you all to contribute to it. And this project is now currently part of Hacktoberfest, actually, uh, which is very simple, apparently, just adding this. So whatever you contribute would be part of Hacktoberfest. Okay. Also, let me add a few more topics here. This would be React. Since we are using React, should I also add React JS? Uh, JavaScript, of course. Yep, I think this should be it. Okay. There won't be any releases, there won't be any packages, deployments. I'll leave that as is. Okay. So I think this should be good enough. Yep. So, wow, a lot of questions here. Let me go through them one by one. Okay. Uh, yeah, it would be helpful if you're contributing to this once we create some more issues at the end of like third session, towards the end of third session. We Yeah, then you can contribute to it, of course. So that was the answer to this question. Hello, are we using React? Yes, we are. That has already been answered. What is MVP? Yes, it's minimum viable product. And what do you mean by it? That is basically what is the minimum functionality that we could create which would make this project usable. Right now, uh, if I start the server, what does our project look like? Just this much, okay? All it has is this hex input box, RGB input box, HSL input box. Is it usable? Not really, okay? Uh, so what is the minimum amount of features that would make this usable to a user who comes on the website and they go like, okay, I want to generate a color. I want definitely the input box. We definitely want the grid, uh, save button probably, or something similar to that, and that's it. That is the minimum viable product for us. Okay, perfect. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. But before that, give me 1 second. I forgot to close my window. You'll have so much background noise, so let me just close that, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and okay, let's continue building. So anyone who is currently behind, all you need to do is go on this GitHub repo, go to code, and just clone it. Okay. Why am I saying that? Because locally you can build it along with me on your machine. Once you build it along with me, you can definitely look at the local preview of it. Okay. And then you can discard it, and then you can fork my repo and you can contribute to it, right? So that is why I would say that please, uh, for the time being, just build along, and you can start contributing when we reach the third session. Okay, before yesterday's ending, where were we? We were trying to create this. Uh, we'll fix this. But we were trying to create basically the HSL color input. So let's actually continue on that. Probably should reduce the music a bit more. Yep, perfect. Okay, so we were trying to build this HSL color input. So we will finish this one. Uh, these props that need to come from the color input, just need to fix that. And once that is done, I think we should be good to go. Okay, cool. So what do we need to add? So if you remember from yesterday's session, we were discussing about how we need to define the prop types, right? The prop types that we have imported here. So let me quickly define that. What is the name of our file? It is hsl color input dot, we could do prop types equals, what are the parameters? The first parameter is going to be an array of things, okay, array of numbers. So we'll use the prop types dot array of, it will be an array of what? It would be an array of numbers, okay. So that is why we will do prop types dot number. And then is it required parameter? Yes, it is. So that's why it is required. What's the second thing? It is on hsl change, and this would be prop types dot, it is a function, right? So that is why dot func dot is required, okay. And that should be it, at least from the validation perspective. This should be it. This hsl, we had created this default which we don't need anymore, so we will need to fix this one, uh like uncomment this, and that's where we have reached. Do we need to map over the values? Yes, I think so, probably, right? uh Maybe we don't. Okay, also one quick thing about hsl. Hsl is hue, saturation, lightness, which means that the hue would be a bigger range than RGB. So in RG and B, the R, the red color goes from 0 to 255. Okay, all I would say whole numbers. Okay, so no decimals, nothing. HSL, in HSL, the hue, it goes from the range of 0 to 360. Okay, the saturation, it goes from the range of 0 to 100, and the lightness again goes from range 0 to 100. How light is the color to how dark is the color? Okay, so we kind of need to fix those as well. So in the input, it would be definitely a type number, but it would be uh, what? It would be like 0 to 360, right? Okay. Then the value h. If you remember from our RGB, which I can put right here, we had done the value r. Okay, perfect. In value h, what could be done? We could do a bunch of things like mm, ensuring that it is always valid and stuff, but we'll do the validation later. Okay, let's ignore it for the time being. Then on this one, on change e, okay, on hsl change, yes, that is okay. There is at the 0th position, but in this case, instead of parse int, we could do parse float. Okay, why we could? Because 0 to 360, it is not exactly taking a whole number as far as I remember with the hue. So could do parse float, then e dot target dot value, that is fine. Placeholder is fine, area label is fine, input is fine. Okay, the next input would be for the saturation. As I said, that goes from 0 to 100, so that's what we will write here. And anything else? Actually, no, this is good. Then for lightness, again, this goes from 0 to 100, and yeah, actually, I leave this as parse in for now, I think. Let's see the difference that it would create. Okay, so this is good. We need to add these props in HSL color input, in the color input file, right? So we can see it needs the HSL, which would be the, which we have to create, still have to create. So we can do that quickly. So const HSL values, comma set HSL values equals to, it would be use state, and then needs an array. Okay, now this could go from 0 to 360. So let's say I go for 289, and then lightness goes from 0 to 100. So let's say I go for 55, sorry, saturation, and lightness goes again from 0 to 100. So let's make that 11. And okay, so HSL would take HSL values, and on HSL change would basically be, oh, we still have to write the handle HSL change, right? So const handle HSL change. Why do we have to do this? Because if you remember from yesterday, we know that our function, sorry, our input, okay, it takes in three parameters, or it destructures in three values, okay. HSL, you can think of it as it gets divided. It would be passed as one single value, as one variable, but it would be broken into three values. So we need to handle that. So that's why we will do like this thing, where we will say const new HSL equals to, it should destructure all the uh, HSL values. Okay, so this HSL values comes from here, and once that is done, then we need to set the new HSL at particular index, which is coming from here, to be equal to the value. And then we just need to do set HSL values to be equal to new HSL. And then in our code, what we could do is call this handle HSL change. Okay. Oh, wow. A lot of questions. Let me quickly see that. Mm, and the HSL is one each for, oops, sorry, missed that question. Yes, I know, right? Too many colors. What are we doing right now? We are continuing to build. Okay. We are continuing to build what we built yesterday, which was adding the HSL color input. If you have missed yesterday's session, it is available on the YouTube channel of Major League Hacking. So let me quickly share the link. You can find the past streams on this. So definitely have a look through. Right now, we are continuing to build what we started yesterday, which was this color input picker. Okay. Handle RGB change and handle HSL change seem to have the same code. Can't we use the same function for both the value setting? We could. Definitely, we could. Okay. If we name it in a certain manner, we add some additional parameters to ensure that when is it HSL, when is it hex. Basically, like, we could add some additional things to ensure that we use the same function, but I don't see how that would be beneficial. Okay. So we would have to do some indexing based on what is being selected, where is the user typing and stuff, and I don't see how that would be helpful. So that is why I would prefer, at least for the time being, to keep them separate. Secondly, uh, once we go over our pull request, our issues, our generated issues, this third issue is where we'll have to separate them again. Okay, and I will show you why and what is happening exactly. But internally, these functions will do something else. So that's why I think I would prefer to keep them separate for now. Okay. uh, Also, just realized you could have more of the screen rather than looking at me. So there you go. So I think that should be good enough, right? We are doing some console logs in RGB color input, so let me remove that. Okay, So that's gone. HSL color input. Can we change this? Yep, we can. Uh, the max it should go is 360. And still going to. Oh, sorry. I need some division definitely between this. I was like, why is it not going? HSL is here. Okay. Yep, this is good. This is good. And yep, this is good enough. Perfect. So inputs work, which is a good thing. We can pass some data from the parent to the child, and we can change the data in the child, which is nice. From a visual perspective, I think we should add some gap here, which I remember removing yesterday. So let's add it back. So we can go like gap dash. Is there a gap X? Yes. So on the X axis, gap 4. Okay, so that separates it out properly. And if we go smaller, what's happening here? They are going one below the other. So we can say that on small screens, okay, gap y should be like 2, but on the large screens the gap y should be 0. So we don't want any top gaps on like large screens, but on small screens we want it, let's say 4. Yep, that's good, better, right? Okay, so completely responsive, at least for the time being, with good enough separation in between them and stuff. So I think this is good. So let's push this. So let me do a git status quickly. Okay, we made some changes in components. And also, I realized one last thing before we push this. Uh, I was looking at the code and I was like, inputs doesn't make sense. Color input should be part of this. So I will rename this folder directly uh, to be called as color input. Okay. So everything is now inside color input. I will also move this color input.jsx file to color input. And okay, that updates this part of it. Uh, app.jsx should get updated. So dot slash component slash color input. And we can actually rename this if we want, or we will need to actually do slash color input slash color input. Okay, this is much better. Yeah. So there we go. We can move from this file to that particular file, which is nice. And from here, we can move to these different files. So now inside the components, we have a color input folder, which houses all of the inputs. Okay, which I think is much better than having inputs outside. So all our color input or the code related to adding, like inputting the color. Okay, I don't think inputting is a word, but if it is, let's say, then the user input of adding the color, changing the color or anything is inside the color input directory. Okay, and now we can push this. So git add and git commit. This would be a feature of added RGB and HSL inputs, right? And let's say, what is my branch name? It is this thing. So I'll copy that and git push origin this. Okay, so I think that's good enough. Anything else that we needed to do in this particular issue, in the second issue? It should have 3 different inputs: hex, RGB, and HSL. And okay, I think that's good enough. Any other changes that we need to do from the perspective of how it is right now? Nope. I think this is cool. Input a color. I think we can remove that header. So that's what I'm going to do for the time being. Not really needed. Okay. And the title here part, where is that? We can go over to this one and we can remove it. Okay. So we can do a git add again, git commit. Uh, this was more of a chore, code cleanup, and git push to this branch. Okay, so we resolved this particular issue, right? So let me go over to our, need to create a PR. Oh yeah, we need to create a PR quickly. So there we go. In our pull requests, it says, oh, you could create a PR for this. So that's what I'm going to do. What would be the title for this? It's a feature of create color input component, right? That's what we did. And this resolves issue, this particular one. And I think that should be good enough. I was the one working on it. So, okay, that goes to me. Let's see. No conflicts. So maybe, not maybe, we can definitely merge this. And we can close it with a comment. Actually, not even needed. Okay. So that's closed. And this particular issue, we can say that it is resolved. And we can close it with the comment. Perfect. That's done. And then what we need to do is just remove this branch. Not really needed now. Okay. What's the next thing? So the next thing is to add the Chroma.js library. Now this is a very interesting one. Why? Because Chroma.js. So Chroma.js, it allows you to read colors from a wide range of formats, analyze and manipulate colors, convert colors into wide range of formats, and a bunch of more stuff, right? So like let's say there is this chroma scale method which tells it to go from this particular color to this particular color in like 6 steps, and it gives you the shades of the colors. So that is why I am going to use Chroma.js. Okay, allows you to like convert colors between one format to other, and that is what we would need in a way. Why? Because let's say in our input, if there is a hex input that already exists, right? Uh, the RGB should actually be a conversion of this value, and the HSL should be conversion of this value, right? Why do we want 3 different kinds of inputs? We would want like a user enters like one value and it converts it to RGB of this hex. It should also convert it to HSL of this hex. And so a user does not need to go anywhere to convert a particular color from one format to other. It would already be by default converted. So that is one good thing. And that is what Chroma.js will help us with. And similarly, then we don't need to maintain the initial value, like initial use state values of 3 different types. We can have it at once and then just use Chroma to convert it. Okay. So let's add that. Let's quickly add that. Uh, why else do we need Chroma? Well, another aspect of where it would help us is in validating colors. Okay. What if someone adds a wrong color, or they only enter like two values of the color? So we can use chroma to actually validate these colors. So yeah, these are some use cases of where and why we will use it. When we reach the contrast part, you remember the whole contrast grid that I was talking about, that we want to ensure what is the accessibility rating of the colors that are generated. We can use chroma for that as well. So yeah, so we can use this chroma.contrast option and computes the WCAG contrast ratio between two colors. Okay, so we could use chroma to do that. Isn't that so good? And yep, true. It is. It is such a cool library. So kudos to the creators, their makers. And for anyone who wants to check it out, there we go. The link is in the chat. Maybe that could be a feature later. At least for the MVP, it's not really required. There's a question here: what is this contrast and accessibility rating? So if I go over to this website, okay, uh, clear everything, and let's say I want to select this particular color. Do you see this contrast rating that it says, like in this hover pop-up from like below? There's keyboard focusable, then role, then name, then contrast, right? And it says it is 8.44 with a green check mark, which basically means that on this color background, this text is perfectly visible. So for screen readers, for someone with, let's say, poor eyesight, someone who wants to like is quickly scanning through the website, this color is perfect on the background. If your website is on this particular background, this color is really good. But then as we move ahead, this is bad. So on this particular background, which is like E58799, the color, the text color is FBE8EB. It's a very bad contrast rating. So it's not very legible. Like you could see it right now, but someone who cannot exactly see properly, this would be a very bad idea. For screen readers and stuff, they could read the values and things, but in general, it's not really a recommended thing. Like as in like on that background, don't use a color with such bad accessibility. People who are color blind as well would be a problem. Someone who can't read properly, it would be a problem. So you should always use colors that have this like green check mark, let's say. So we will add a feature which will show how accessible is the color on the particular background. Okay, so like on this dark background, this color is perfect, it's awesome. So I hope that makes kind of sense. And even on chroma, it actually gives a link to the contrast. Yeah, a minimum contrast of 4.5:1 is recommended to ensure that text is still readable against the background color. And if you don't have readable text, you will also get very less lighthouse score. What is a lighthouse score? It is actually available as part of your uh, console, and it will tell you uh, how good is accessibility of your website, how good is the performance, are you using the best practices, is the SEO uh, like good or bad of this. So one of the parameters of rating your website is accessibility. Okay, uh yeah, so hope that helps. Definitely, let's move on to adding this. Okay, yeah, true. Sorry, I was saying like screen readers have accessibility parameters, and then I realized color wouldn't affect, but there are other things that would affect the accessibility for screen readers, like buttons not having proper naming, ARIA label, and stuff. So yeah, not the colors or the contrast of the colors, but other things could. Sorry about that. My bad. Okay, so let's move on. Let's build the next thing. Would be adding the chroma.js library. So once we have added that, we will also refactor our color input a bit. Where did that library go? So to add it, they suggest just using this. So let's do that. Also, I should check out to the main branch, right? And just do a git pull. Okay, so we have everything. And next step would be to install chroma.js. So we do npm install chroma.js, should add it to our package JSON in the dependencies, exact dependency without any caret. We had discussed in detail about what it is. And what else do we need to do? Also, should check out to the branch. So let me create a new one. Okay, so we are on a new branch and let's add chroma here, right? So we could do right below this, import chroma from chroma.js. Okay, and then what do we need to do next? We need to, what about the types of this? Do we need to install the types of chroma.js? I think we would. Let's say we'll figure that out. Uh, okay, so our initial color, let's choose an initial color. I'll go with this 4512AB. And in this one, okay, right here, we will say that this should actually be equal to the chroma of uh, this particular variable, right? So actually, for the time being, I can create a const chroma color comma set chroma color, and that is the use state of this initial value. Okay, so now our chroma color has been defined, and for every other input, we could now just use that, right? So we could do uh, this could just be chroma color because this is hex, input goes to hex. Uh, for HSL, what we could do is we could call the chroma color variable that we have and do a dot HSL on that. Sorry, this is RGB, so we could do dot RGB on that. And for the HSL one, we could do like chroma color dot HSL. If you see, it's not exactly giving me the recommendations, and that is because it says that chroma, oh, okay, this one we can fix that later, but the second one could not find a declaration of this. So it says that you should do npm I save dev types of chroma.js. So let's do that quickly. I'm just going to paste that quickly here, and I will share this with you all. Okay, now there should be some, hopefully, some types. Okay, not really, not yet at least. And actually, in this case, we could just do chroma of this color, I guess. I mean, let's see if it will work out. Okay, so this is set and chroma of a particular color. The string. Okay, so we are not doing any conversions here. We are doing conversions right here. And okay, now it kind of gives us suggestions, right? So .hsl, it would convert to this hsl values. And as you can see, it says the hsl, the example say shows that it is decimal values. Okay, and there's also like this last one which I'm not so sure about what it is. I would always break it into three parts. This is broken into four for some reason. Oh yeah, and RGB is always going to be a proper one, okay, without any decimal point. So we also need to fix those things. Okay, for the timing, let's like focus on this one. uh okay, handle RGB change. So what we want is once someone puts in a hex value, it should get converted to the RGB and HSL of exactly that, right? Okay, there's a suggestion in the chat. It pertains to alpha, but alpha, I'm not sure. Alpha would be lightness in case of HSL at least, right? How dark or light should be the color. So alpha would be the opacity, and opacity would be like, is it 100% opacity or lighter? I feel in case of HSL it should be lightness, but I could be wrong. But good find, definitely good find. uh, Set RGB values. And now what could we do here? We could kind of create a new color using the updated RGB values, right? So we could go like const new color equals to chroma of the new RGB that we created, and we can define the type that this should be of RGB. Then we will say the set chroma color to this new color, right? And then we will set the hex input. We will also update the hex input to be this new color dot hex, and we will update the HSL input as well. So set HSL values, set HSL input. What did we name it? Oh, so we named it hex input and HSL values. Okay, cool. Set HSL values to be the new color dot HSL, and then what else do we need to do? I think this should be good enough. So let's test it out. So if I go over to this one, and also I should change the HSL to, instead of doing parse int, it should do parse float. Okay, perfect. So now if I change this AB, or just change this to FFF. Oh, we have not set that in this one. Actually, let me reload. If I change RGB to 0, suddenly you can see the change in HSL. This goes to 0 as well, and this goes to 1. So you can see the change in hex and HSL while we are changing this. So if I change the R value, change the B value to something, oh sorry, G value to something, change the B value, you can see that the HSL and the hex are being updated simultaneously, right? So for this particular RGB, there is the hex code is this, and the HSL code or the HSL value is this. Okay, so that's something to kind of look forward to. like successfully we have, based on the change in RGB, we have updated the HSL and the hex. What else could we do? Well, we need to also figure out and fix the handle HSL change, right? Like on change of HSL values, it should change the uh, RGB and the hex. So we could do some similar kind of coding here. So we could do like const new color equals chroma of the new HSL, and this would be of type HSL, right? Now we will set the chroma color to be equal to the new color, and we will set the hex input to be equal to new color dot hex. Then we will set the RGB values to be equal to new color dot RGB, and that should be it. Hmm. Okay, I think that should be it. So if I change this, okay, okay, so this updates. Cool. So we have added chroma. We have, based on the changes in RGB and HSL, we are updating the hex values and everything else. Uh, I'm confused about what to do with hex. Should we do that here or should we pass it from the parent? Actually, let's pass it from the parent. Hmm. So what is the parent of this color input? The parent of color input is in app.jsx, right? So uh, yeah, let's do that. Let's pass the initial color from the parent, which is app.jsx, and set it in the color input as a hex and then make some changes. Okay. So what we are going to do is we will set const color, comma set color equals to use state of what is the initial color that we are passing. It's this one in a string, of course, right? So const color and set color. And then what we will do is we will pass this color directly to color input. So color input should take in two things. It should take in the color value, which will be equal to the color that's coming from here. And it should also have the on change handler. So on change color, it should basically call the set color. Hmm. Okay, I think this should be good. And now we need to make the color input accept these parameters. So it should accept two things. It should accept the color value, and then it should also accept the on change color. Okay, I think this is good. Uh, Now this color value, where are we going to use the color value? So color value will now be passed to chroma here. Okay, so the color value is coming from the parent. And what about this on change color? So on change color is something that should notify the parent that something has changed, right? Yeah. So we will go over to our handle RGB change and we will say that on change color, it should go to new color dot the hex value. And similarly in handle HSL change, we will do the same thing. On change color, oops, on change color, it should notify the parent. It should call the parent and it should add that. Now that we have two props here, we need to fix them, as in like add the prop types. So we could do what we have been doing. We could import prop types from prop types, and then down here we could do color input dot prop types equals, what's the first thing it needs? It needs the color value. What would be the type of color value? It should be string, right? So it would be prop types dot string dot is required, of course. And what about the on change color? That should be a function. So prop types dot func dot is required, and I think that should resolve it. So now let's go here. There's a base color set here, there is the RGB, and there's the HSL. And now if I change this thing, wonder why would it not? Okay, changing RGB changes that, changing this changes that, changing this. Okay, what am I missing? Why would the change in hex not change this? Oh, should this be it? This should be passed as color value. This is not triggering for some reason, and I am confused. Let me think about it. So what am I doing? I am saying that I have this chroma color, which is coming from the parent color value. Okay, and that exists definitely. Uh, I'm calling the hex input, and then what else? We are setting the hex input. There's my hex input, right? We are setting it inside the handle RGB change. That calls the on change color, which should tell the parent that something has changed. And since something has changed, that should update the hex input. Like in my mind, that's how it should have happened. Okay, there is a suggestion that you're not calling the set chroma color. Uh, but as I said, like in my mind, the way I'm thinking that it should happen is the hex input has changed. And if the hex input has changed, then that should not be required. Wait, let me think. If I do a use effect here, actually, no, not really. If you're saying that I should do like const, take the initial value of hex input as chroma color. I think that's what I had, right? What? Why would this be a object? Oh yeah, could not be chroma color, of course. Uh, should be color. Okay, so cannot provide that. If okay, interesting. Let me think. Uh, what could be done? We could do a use effect here, and let's say that mm, set the hex input to be color value. Also, should also do the check, right? So if chroma dot is or dot valid color value, okay, if this is the case, if it is a valid color, then in that case, what you need to do is uh, set the hex input to that, and this should always change depending on if the color value has changed. Let's see. Really, you want me to add a hex change to const handle hex change? Okay, and that would basically take nothing, and that's why I'm trying to avoid it. Set the hex input to be, what were we doing? Color value, right? And this goes down here. Nope, this would not work. Okay, I am confused and I am going to leave it as is actually for the time being. So we have one bug in our code, at least right now, which is on changing the hex color, it is not changing the RGB. But on changing the RGB and HSL, it is changing the hex, which is cool. Pass value as a function argument could be, I think so. Uh, like could require adding all those things, but again, theoretically, it should have worked. Like on changing the hex input, okay, the hex input should change, and if hex input changes, wait, should I send this on change color to be Now the hex input. Okay, I am going to ignore it for the time being, but we'll fix it. Don't worry. We also added this chroma dot valid. If the color value is valid, then you should set the hex input. Uh, same at the same time, we should also set the color values of others. So we'll create a const new color inside here, which is equal to chroma of this color value. Okay, so color value has changed, let's say. Then we will say set the chroma color to the new color, change the hex input of course, then set the HSL values to be the new color dot HSL, set the RGB values to be new color dot RGB. So what is this chroma dot valid? So dot valid is a functionality. Yeah. So if you give it a color, it will give you if this is a valid color or not. So in case of red, it returns true. In case of bread, it returns false. In case of F000, like 4 times 0D, it returns true. In case of food, it returns false. So it confirms if the color is valid. So that's what actually we are doing right now. We are trying to like do if chroma dot valid the color value, then step one, do this chroma of this color value, like find the valid color kind of this, or convert it to a chroma object, let's say. Then we are saying that set the chroma color to be equal to this new color that the user has entered, the hex input to be equal to the color value, like set the hex input to color value, uh, which would have updated because of this one. Then set the HSL values to this new color.hsl, set the RGB values to the new color.rgb. And I see the suggestions in the chat about pass the hex input in dependency array and stuff. uh, Again, I am still thinking that should not be required. Okay, so yeah, because in theory, if the color value has changed, this should change. So I am kind of unsure, still unsure. Like, if do I really need to do all that? Let's say I add const hex handle hex change equals to the new hex that's coming, and then that goes to set hex input to this new hex. Okay, and this handle hex color change would go here. So code wise, no issues. Let's see. Hopefully that resolves it. If this is like 255, 255, and 255, that's when it goes there. Also, there's another issue here, received nan for the value attribute. Okay, so apparently this is converting to not a number. saying change this to chroma color dot hex. But is that needed? Because that should be just the hex value, right? Mhm. Nope. Then what do we need to also, let's say, do this on change color to this new hex color, let's say. Do you think that should help it? Uh, okay, this is being weird to me now. I'm definitely missing a very small piece of it. But okay, for the time being, I'm not going to waste too much of your time into figuring this out. We will fix this. Okay, we will fix this for sure. Okay, we have added chroma. We have added some validation that the color is valid. We are doing a bunch of stuff. I still feel that this should not be required. It should come down from color value because color value will always be a hex color, let's say. And yeah, okay, cool. We'll push this for the time being and we'll figure out it probably in the next PR of adding color preview section and then adding a toast message, right? Okay, so git status looks good. This would be a feature. What did we do? Added chroma JS library and yeah. And what is my branch name? It is this. I'm going to copy that and git push origin to the third one. Quickly create a pull request. Okay, this is like half pending. Uh, this, yes, that's done. Also forgot to reference this issue. Nope, not this one, this one. Okay, so this is done. Let's move on to the next bit, at least for the time being. I am still thinking about the hex code change at the back of in the back of my mind, but we'll eventually reach there. Uh, color preview section. So what is this about? So on their website, they have this very nice color preview section, which shows you a preview of the color. Like right now, at least in our code, we cannot understand that we are typing some hex value, of course, but what does that look like? There's no visual output or a visual outcome to that. So we need to we should add a color preview section, which should give us a preview of what the color looks like, right? So let's add that quickly. I am going to check out to main. clear this, git pull everything, then check out to a new branch. Okay, and let's add a color preview section. Now the color preview section, we can actually add it in the color input, right? Because it's part of the color input. So inside the color input, I'm going to create a new file of color preview.jsx. Don't need this particular part. And what do we need though? So, well, very simply, it should accept the color that's coming from the parent, which in this case would be color input. And here, all it needs to do is uh, put a style with the background color to be equal to the color. Okay. And actually, technically, that's it. That's all you need to do to show that particular color. Now we will need to add the prop types, right? So let's do that quickly. So we can do import prop types from prop types. And in this case, we will say color preview dot prop types equals to color, which is the input. It is going to be a string. So prop types dot, it's going to be a string dot is required. Okay. And yeah, that's kind of, that should be it. uh, we need to use it in color input. Okay, so you remember our fourth place that we had created, that's where this color preview could go. So just below or just above all of these, we could call the color preview. Okay, with the color equal to, what should be it, it should be chroma color dot the hex value. Okay, no, actually it should be chroma color dot css. Okay, yeah, because why css? Because we are directly passing the css value of this to the background color. Okay, so now if we go over to our project, there we go, there's a background color. And if I change this to ffaaff, should have switched, didn't. If I change this, you can see a change in color the color preview box. So color input still works, though hex change is not. We'll need to do something about it, definitely. I am still thinking, still thinking. Okay, so color input box, that's good. Should add some styling to it. So I will add some inline styling using class names. Uh, why? Because using Tailwind CSS, we will say that the width should be full. Uh, we can change the height of it, that it should be height h-24, which is like 96 pixels. But on a larger screen, it needs to be bigger, so h-32. And what else? It should be rounded. We could add it like rounded MD or something. And it should cast a shadow. So why a shadow? Because if the color is white, then you will not see that the box exists. Okay. But if we cast a shadow, it's much easier to understand that there is something there. Okay. So, and we can give it a title. Or should we? Or should we not? Mm, not sure. What happens if we go smaller? Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so color preview kind of is done, right? Was very small, but in this same PR, we will also fix the HSL issues that it's giving us. Uh, yeah. So for the timing, let's just push this one. So git add all git commit feature added color preview. Component and to push it to this particular branch. Okay, so kind of currently able to merge, of course. Also, did we close the previous issue? Yep. Currently, let's say all of this is assigned to me so that it's easier from the time from the future perspective. Okay, not going to merge this yet because we also need to fix the hex issue. So if I change this to like 255, change this to 255, change this to 255, some reason this breaks. It says that received nan for the value attribute at input at div at hsl color input. There's some error in hsl color input. So what we could do is we could ensure that it does not go like below 0, does not go above 360. So some fixes there. So let's do that very quickly. So let's go over to our hsl color input, and right here what we could say is const handle hsl input change, and this takes in the index, the value, of course. And now it needs to do a few things. We will define two things, min and max. If index is 0, triple equals to 0, then in that case we want the min to be 0 and the max to be 360, right? And what else? Then we can add an else saying that the min is equal to 0 and max equals to 1. Okay, so what are we doing? So in case of hue, we are saying hue range from 0 to 360. That's what we are doing here. And in this case, we are saying that saturation, comma, lightness range from 0 to 1 as fractions. Okay, so as fractions, it's going to range from 0 to 1. Yeah, so there's this particular if else. Then we also need to add the condition if the value is less than min or the value is more than the max. In that case, we should just return. Okay, and finally we can do on hsl change. It should call be passed with the index comma value, so the call back. So call the parent back with the updated values. That's what we are doing here. Okay. Any changes below? What we could do here is 0 to 360, that is fine. We can add a condition here. So it was saying that the value received a nan, right? So we could do like is nan of h. If the hue is nan, then in that case let it be empty. Else math dot round it to whatever is the h. There's a question in the chat about why do you not need to add a condition for lightness? We did, right? Saturation and lightness, both of them are between like 0 to 100 kind of. So 0 to 1 as fraction. Okay, and the on change. Now in this case, instead of doing on handle HSL change, it should basically, let's remove this thing. So we will say now it should call the handle HSL input change at 0th index. And now we are going to do a parse float of e dot target dot value, right? Else set it to 0. So if any condition is like not met kind of, we are updating the hue value to be 0. Similarly, if we go to the next one, that is the saturation, we can do similar things, right? We could say that if this is nan, then set it to empty. Else math dot, not random, definitely dot random, math dot round saturation multiplied by 100, so that it's going to be now maximum, like minimum 0, maximum 100. And what else? Handle it input change, right? So but we need to just change this part, I guess. Handle HSL input change. Okay, 1 comma parse float of this value, but this would, let's say, divide by 100 it would be, or 0. Feels like I'm convoluting it in a bit. Do we really need to do that 0 to 1? Okay, let's see. And similarly for the lightness, we could do the same thing as the saturation. Lightness, it's empty, or lightness multiplied by 100. And here what do we need to do is call the handle HSL input change, position 2 parse float, this divided by 100 and 0. And I think that should be it actually. Okay, so now if I set this to 255 and this to 255, perfect, it goes to empty. Okay, uh the saturation is 0, the lightness is 100, right? And there is no error. And if I change this, that's cool. Okay, so I think that resolves it, so we can kind of push the bug fix. So in this case, what we did was bug fix the HSL color input nan handling. Okay, that's what we did. And let's just push this. So now if I go here, two things have been pushed and no issues here. I guess we can merge this. Oh, forgot to again close it. Add the reference to the open issue. Could do a revert and stuff, but I don't know. Let's see. Resolves this. Delete the branch. Go over here. Okay, mention this issue in this. Resolved. And closing it with a comment. Okay, so that's some like really quick coding that we are doing right now. Like, bug fixing here and there very quickly, very fast, adding stuff, removing stuff, and all that. Uh, okay, moving on. What's the next step? The next step is to adding some toast message. Okay, so right now we are doing everything, but we should add some toast messages when the user is uh, in adding some wrong input, or there's like some error here and there. So I think this would be a very good feature, and the library that we are going to use is called React Hot Toast. This is a very cool library, I would say. It's very simple to add. So there you go. Make me a toast. And if you look at its documentation, uh, yeah, just need to add this toaster thing, and that kind of is everything. Okay, and then you could do bunch of stuff there. Uh, like I wouldn't get into it right now, but the easiest thing is to add this toaster in your main app.jsx, and then wherever you want to show a toast, you could add it using this toast thing. Toast, here is your toast. Okay, so let's add this library. Getting started, we are going to do npm install of that. Let me also share it in the chat with everyone. Also, I should check out to main. Did pull everything? Okay. Yep, we have everything. Should still work the way it was, even though this thing is being a problem. Hopefully, during solving this toast, we resolve that error as well. Okay, so what are we doing? Yeah, we are adding React Hot Toast, right? I have copied that. So I'm going to install it. Also, I forgot to check out to the new branch. So what is our new branch? Feature add toast message. Okay, yep, that should be good. And now that we have installed React Hot Toast, which is right here, we need to use it. So the way we use it, as I said, all you have to do is first call it in your main component. In our case, our main component is going to be the app.jsx, right? So we need to call the toaster in app.jsx. Very funny name. Uh, where should we call it? It should be called at the top of everything. Uh, so actually, I will wrap this whole thing in a div, and we can call the toaster here. Okay. So toaster comes from React Hot Toast. This can go down here. Yep. Okay. So toaster that comes from React Hot Toast, we have added that at the top of everything in a way, and then we need to use it, right? As I said, uh, we could use it to show notifications to the user. Now, one of the places where we can use this toast notification is color input. Okay, so I'm going to actually import the toast from React Hot Toast. Okay, so we are importing the toast, and what do we want to show to the user? So we need to validate the color that is being entered. Okay, so chroma color, that's fine. Hex color input, that is fine. uh, HSL and RGB, that is fine. Handle hex change, you can get it on top here. Use effect is okay. Now in handle hex change, like let's start from here. We can say that const valid hex equals to, what does a valid hex look like? It needs to contain uh, numbers from 0 to 9. It needs to contain capital, like if it contains capital letters, it should be only between A to F, and the small letters again from A to F, right? It should start with a hash. So we can write a very quick regular expression for it. So we will say that it needs to start with a hash symbol, and then it could contain anything from 0 to 9, capital A to capital F, and small a to small f. The order doesn't matter, uh, of like it should start from numbers. The question mark basically says that between this, uh, it should be like it should either contain numbers between this to this range, letters from this to this, small letters from this to this. Okay. Okay, so that is a valid hex, what a valid hex looks like. And then we will say that if valid hex dot test, test it against the new hex color that we are adding here. If valid hex dot test against the new hex color, then you have to set this particular hex input. Okay, so that is good. We are going to ensure that our hex color is always valid string. What next? Now, use effect is fine. We need to add another use effect. We should add another use effect. Also, the use effect can go to the bottom of all these color changes. Yep, right here. And yeah, next one would be another use effect. Now, this use effect would basically, what should it do? It should, yeah, it should raise the notification, right? Or do we need two of them? Let me think. Actually, we don't need this one, right? Yeah. What could we do? Uh, we are going to check the color, of course. We're going to set all this. So we don't need the second use effect. Wait, let me think. Do we need the second use effect? Hmm, still thinking. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So we are saying that if chroma dot valid color value, then const new color is chroma of the color value. Then we are setting the chroma color. We are setting the HSL value. We are setting the RGB value. Uh, the hex value, yeah. Then we will need to notify the parent. So on change of color, uh, what should it go to? On change of color, it should change to color value. No, uh, chroma color, right? Chroma color dot hex, I would say. That's what it needs to notify to the parent. And if it is valid, then it is good. Else, what we need to do is we need to do a toast dot error, and we will say uh, invalid hex value, invalid color dash color value. Okay. And finally, it will be there for some time. Then afterwards, it should basically be gone. So we will say return toast dot dismiss. And now it changes on the basis of chroma color and this. Wait, let's test it quickly. Or if I do this, oh, our hex already has a problem, right? Wait, let me create a new one. Also, we should add a debounce here. We don't want this check to happen on every instance. Okay, we'll leave this use effect as is. We'll not change this. We'll not make any changes to this particular use effect. We will create a new one so that it's much easier to track the changes. Okay, we will create, let me minimize these ones. Now we don't want the checking to happen on every keystroke of the user. We will wait for a couple of seconds before the check happens. So we will do something called as debouncing on a button, or on the input. So we will call a debounced hex input, and we'll create a custom function called as use debounce, which will take in the hex input and some delay. Okay, two things. Now this use debounce is something that we need to create. Since it starts with use, it is a hook. Okay, and we need to create this custom hook. So in the source folder, I'm going to create a hooks folder. Inside that is the first file use debounce.js. Okay. Now, what is this supposed to do? So we are going to say that anytime a user inputs the hex value, it should wait for a couple of seconds, like could be milliseconds, not seconds, it could be milliseconds. It should wait for a couple of milliseconds, and then it should run the validation function. So let's quickly create this use debounce. And this is a very important thing, like debouncing as a even as a concept, because sometimes, let's say on a website, you don't want a user to click the button. Like once they have clicked it, you want to wait for, let's say, 500 milliseconds or 1 second for the result to come back, and you don't want the user to go clicky clicky clicky, right? You want to wait for the results to come back. So the hook that we create right now, it is reusable, and you could like reuse it in anything. So we'll say const debounce equals to, it needs a value and it needs a delay, it like two parameters. And then we can do some set state here. So debounced value and set debounced value, and we will say it should use the use state and the initial value would be the value, and the use effect would basically be checking against this one. So it would be like, let's hand let's do a timeout. So const handler equals to set timeout, and inside this we will say set the debounced value to be equal to the value that you have set. So we are not changing the value, we are not updating the value as such, we are setting it back to the value that was there. The only difference is it will be set after certain delay. Okay, there would be like whatever delay that you have given before it gets set. And then we need to do a cleanup again. So we'll do return, and to clean up a set timeout, you have to do a clear timeout. And which timeout are we clearing? The name of the variable, the handler one, and what else? Oh, the dependencies here, right? So it has two dependencies. It has the value as a dependency and the delay as a dependency. And finally, we just need to do return debounced value. And from this file, we have to export this use debounce. So export default use debounce. Okay, that is done. Yep, looks good. And now here we can just say that use debounce comes from the hooks file, and we have the debounced hex input. Now the debounced hex input, we will call it in the new use effect that we write. Okay, so right here we will say uh, if the debounced hex input is empty, in that case just return. And we should also check if the validity of it. So if chroma dot is valid debounced hex input, if it is a valid color, then const new color equals to chroma of debounced hex input. We need to set the chroma color to be the new color. Need to set the HSL values to be new color dot HSL. We need to set the RGB values to be new color dot RGB, and then we need to notify the parent. Okay, so on change color, it goes to the debounced hex input, and this is the if condition. But else we need to show a toast dot error of, I'm using backticks here, template strings, because we can then use, so this would be invalid hex value. We can use this dollar symbol and then we could kind of pass in the variable. So this is done, and then what else? We need to clean up, right? So return equals to toast dot dismiss. And what is this going to be dependent on? It is going to be dependent on the debounced hex input and on change color. Okay, so let's see. If we wait, okay, that's good. Invalid hex value. Okay, invalid hex value 4FF GG. No, not allowing me to type. Okay, and with debouncing, we actually even fixed this RGB and HSL. Okay, so FA. Yep, that changes. So that is good. So I wonder, probably another use effect was the key to fixing it, or the on change color going up. On change color to be new color dot x. And if I comment this out just to confirm, for some reason it doesn't work in that one, but it works here. Okay, we can figure this out mystery later, but at least for the time being, we know that uh, successfully we could change the colors. Okay, colors change for everything. If I type this, okay, this changes all the HSL input changes. And if I reduce 1.5, it says invalid hex value. There's your error as well. So that is really good. Okay. So debouncing works successfully. Somehow we fix the hex, RGB, and HSL changes, and we have a color preview. That is good. I think I'm happy with this one. Even though I still need to understand why and what made it change. Oh, also don't need this on change color here. Okay, so let me clear this, and we can do git add, git commit. uh well, we kind of did a bug fix and also a feature, but I'll add feature added toast message bug fix hex input, right? And what is my branch? Git push origin, this one. Let me create a very quick pull request right here, and this time I'll remember fixes this issue. This could be merged. Yep, that's done. Assigned to me. Delete branch. And now if I reload this, this is done. This is done. Two tasks are done. And I can just say resolved. Oh, and it's already closed. Okay, thank God. So if you add it there, it gets closed automatically. So I don't need to add this. And now we have two last issues, at least for today's, like right, this session. I wouldn't say today's. I think we'll be able to complete this one probably. Customize color slider. So now this issue, the reason why I created that was, if you go to the change over to HSL, it gives you this very nice slider, right? To kind of visualize what colors you're going, like which color you're going towards. Similarly, on the RGB color slider, it gives you this again a very nice slider to see where you're going on this, like, or at least you know how dark green, how light red, or dark red, or something like blue, light, dark, whatever. Gives you the slider gives you a better user experience, I feel. So we should add a custom slider. Now we have some slider available as part of like HTML in general, but instead of using that, I would prefer to use like customize mine, or create a custom one, because I want the slider to also have this colors inside it. Okay, so this is going to be a bit lengthy, would be a bit tricky, but let's see where we reach. So let's going back, like look, going back to our project. Let me copy this name for creating the branch, checking out to main, and git pull everything. Okay, so this is good. I'm going to close everything first so that it's empty kind of. And now inside the color input, so the slider would be part of color input. So now I'm going to create a directory there calling custom slider. Okay, custom slider will have the custom slider .jsx, of course, creating one very quickly. And now what code goes in here? So from the perspective of the slider, it is going to be very simple, but customizing it would be tricky. So, okay, a slider is nothing but a input actually of type range. Okay, and what else? We need to specify the minimum value it can take, the maximum value it can take, and stuff like that, right? So we'll provide a min to be will come from some prop. So it will have a min, it will have a max, it will have what is the value, it will have the on change handler, that on change what happens, and that should be it right now. So min, the max will come from max, the value, not capture, value will come from value, and the on change will come from the on change, right? So input of type slider, that's it. And okay, I think that should be it, at least for the time being. Now, where do we use this slider? The slider will not be used in color input. Why? Because it's very specific to two things. It's specific to RGB color input, and it is specific to the HSL color input. So let's add the custom slider to RGB color input first. Okay. So we have this div which had the input boxes. Below that, we can create another div with a class name of margin top of 4. And on the y-axis, we want space between the sliders. So space y2. And we'll call the custom slider 3 times, right? So custom slider. And it is expecting like few things. It needs what is the minimum, that is going to be 0. What is the maximum, that is going to be 255. What is the value, it should be equal to the value of the red color. And on change, what it should do is it should take the event and then call the on RGB change, and then at 0th position pass the value, right? And in this case it would be parse int of e dot target dot value. And if this is not there, then it should default to 0. Okay, and now we need to do this 3 times. So is red, green, RGB, red, green, and blue. So green and then blue, and then the position would change to 1 and 2. Okay, anything else that needs to change? No, I don't think so. So let's see what it looks like. So it gives us this slider color. And if you see, if I move it, it changes the values and it also changes the preview. And this is fine, I would say, in a way. Uh, but we could improve. We could definitely improve it. What are the improvements that we need to think of? Number one, we want a background color to be set, right? So we should pass it a background color that should be set in the custom slider. So what could we pass it as? We could pass it as a gradient. Why a gradient? Simply because it needs to have two colors. It goes from the white all the way to the dark red, like, proper red. So that is why we'll call it gradient. And what we will say is the style of it is going to be like the background color, or the background more like, is being set to the gradient. I mean, we could do background color, I guess. Let's see the difference. Background color to be gradient. And now if we go over to RGB color input, there's another prop here, gradient. And now gradient is going to be very interesting. What is it going to be? It is actually of type string in a way. Okay, why? Because it's going to set the gradient, but it is going to be a linear gradient uh, going towards the right. So to right, it starts from, let's say, black and goes all the way to the red. And bracket close. So we can copy this thing, uh, add it here, add it here. The only difference would be now in green, it should start from 0, 0, and then FF. And in blue, it should go from 0, 0 to finally FF. Okay. So now we have three colors defined. And if I go and reload this, unfortunately, it is not working. Why? Because this slider actually is your basic input slider. You need to override the styles of it. Okay. So the value and everything it takes properly, but the gradient and stuff, it does not exactly change it. So we need to override it, and we need to create a custom slider.css file. Okay. Now custom slider.css, we need to call this file in RGB input. Should we call it in RGB color input, or we can call it in the parent actually, right? Oh, by parent, what am I saying? It should go into custom slider, right? So import dot slash custom slider dot css. Yep, correct. And then the top div, we can give it a class name of slider dash container. Okay, though, so that's one. And for this input, we can give it a class name of slider. Okay. Now let's go over to our slider CSS. This is going to be like for dot slider dash container. I will say that the width should be like 100%. And the position should be relative. Okay. And for the slider itself, the class name, we first have to set the appearance to be none. Okay. Then we need to set the width to be like 100%. The height. Okay. So the height of the slider, that could be like, let's say, 20 pixels. The background should be like transparent. Also, if I set this to background, let's see. Okay, perfect. There we go. Background gradient. Now that gives you the slider with colors inside it, goes from black all the way to this. For white, if you have to do white, everything max out is white. If you have to do black, everything min out to be black, right? So I think that's a very good uh, visualization of colors. And what else? You can give it a border, because when it is completely white, probably it would not be visible. So 1 pixel solid black, let's say, a border. When the cursor goes on it, it should be pointer. The margin around it to be 0. The padding around it to be 0. And that's it. So we have successfully created a slider. Now this circle inside, we can customize that. But we will do that actually in the next session. Okay. So let me come back on screen. And I know we are 2 minutes over time, but don't have next session. You have like 58 minutes break, and then we'll be back to continue this session and do the third part where we will add the slider for the HSL input. Then we will create the button to generate the grid of colors. Then we will, if we have time, we'll add the functionality to copy the colors, like the generated colors and stuff. And then we'll create a bunch of other features. Okay. And I'll ask you for your input, like what do you think should be the feature to this? Okay. So, yeah, with that, if there are no further questions, we can end this session. Thank you so much, everyone. I know we were like at a toss in between when we were trying to resolve a bug, but we kind of resolved it, even though I'm still unsure. FFAACC. Okay, this changes, this changes, this changes, and the slider changes as well. Okay, like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Slider changes, RGB changes, HSL changes. Isn't that cool, right? So, yeah, I know, right? All these things in 2 days. When you're setting XMV, you're not setting the set chroma color. Take the initial value of the, oh, sorry. All these things in 2 days. Yeah. Sorry, I just missed. Ah, absolutely love this comment. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in approximately an hour. Okay. So cheers, everyone. Bye bye.